In the Buzz now at 9, a high school wrestler who forfeits his chance at a state title because he didn't want to wrestle a girl. It happened in Iowa. Joel Northrup, he cited his faith when opting out of that match against Casey Perkelman. Well, he says it's just not appropriate for a boy and a girl to wrestle in a tournament. Well, organizers said that they wish they had known that Joel was going to do this because they could have, done something different. The match, of course, came down to the final minutes, implying that the arrangements could have been made.
Yeah,
But we did not know he was going to do that until he stepped out onto the mat.
His family didn't contact you at all?
We did not have any conversations with the family.
If it's his religion and he's strong in his religion, then I just respect that, that someone has... obviously, everyone's going to be pointing fingers at him, and, he at least is true to his beliefs, and you have to respect that.
All right, I want to point out the girl you just heard from there was not the person Joel would have wrestled. She's another girl who also qualified for the state wrestling tournament. This was the first time that actually two girls qualified. Now at 9, what do you think about this story? Should girls and boys be allowed to wrestle each other?
And by the way, we should point out that the girl that he would have wrestled lost her match last night, so she won't be going on in the competition. But I understand where he's coming from, and not even from a religious standpoint. Men are trained, not to touch a girl, not to be abusive toward a woman. And wrestling is a very physical, touchy sport. You're grabbing each other in odd places, and, I can understand why he would be so uncomfortable with that.
Well, and it goes beyond that. He says it's because of his religion. You got to commend this kid for at least standing up, because I know, when you're 16, 17, 18 years old, it's hard to make decisions that big in life and stand up for what you believe in all the time.
Well, I did talk to his church this morning. I gave them a phone call, and of course they've been inundated with phone calls. Yeah. The pastor there said this is very typical of Joel, that he is that kind of kid. His father is also one of the big church members there, and they said that it's one of those things where they do teach their young members to be cognizant of these kinds of things, women and men, and they're not surprised by it. This is his character, this is his nature. And by the way, on a side note, his mom had a baby this morning, so he's a brother. He's a brother, but the family did say that he's going to hold off. He is still at the tournament. They're going to give him until Monday before he comes back and starts doing interviews. Yeah. So we have put in a request to get him to join us on Now at 9, so hopefully he will. But they said this is his nature. The church said this is the kind of kid he is.
Well, and I commend him again for the decision, but at the same time, I think that the girls have every right to be in that competition. That's my opinion, because I think, listen, why can't they wrestle? Just because they're girls? That's not fair.
I think there should be a female wrestling team.
I agree. That's what I'm saying.
But what if there is none? Then what?
Then you make one.
There you go.
There's not enough girls that want to wrestle to make a whole female wrestling team. That's the problem.
I think there would be if there was an option. Right. Because all of our lives, there's never been a female wrestling team. But I think if that was an option, and now, especially after this tournament, that there's more women who'd prefer to wrestle versus other sports.
Well, let's get right to what you're saying online. Herman Bricado writes, not in a contact sport like that. An accidental placement of a hand could lead to a sexual harassment lawsuit.
Susan Brewer writes, segregation leads to more problems than it solves. If women are physically able to compete with men, then they should be allowed to.
Steve Goddard writes, of all the sports, wrestling should be the last one that is co-ed. Start with golf.
Leanne Baker writes, if girls are tough enough to fight in combat in our armed forces, then I guess they can compete in high school wrestling. More power to them. I have to agree. She did lose, obviously, her tournament today. But the fact that two women, for the first time, two girls, made it to this tournament, then that tells you that there are some girls out there who can wrestle their buns off, and I think good for them.
Well, this reminds Brian Frederick on Facebook of an episode of King of the Hill where Bobby has to wrestle Connie. I don't know if you watch King of the Hill. You probably remember that episode. Michael Lucero writes, this boy and his family have no class at all. Religion has no place in sports.
Well, Graham Murphy says, okay, of course it's okay for those who say it shouldn't happen because of some sexual element. If wrestling resembles sex in your life, you're doing it wrong. LOL.
That's true. That's a very interesting point there.
Well, Judy Thornton writes, she has the right to to wrestle, and he has the right to be a gentleman, which is kind of my perspective on this. He has the right to forfeit the match for his religious beliefs. I commend him, but...
I think, but again, I will say this, because a lot of the organizers were really caught off guard by this.
Yeah.
If you were going to make that decision, he should have made it before going to the tournament, because he knocked perhaps somebody else from going to the tournament, or maybe they could have changed the way things were done. So I think that, it's not a spur-of-the-moment thing. You're either religious all day, and he felt that way, obviously, before going to the tournament. Alrighty.
It's a good topic. I mean, the discussion on this
They
is
hit the bell.
up.
That means
oh, my goodness, yes.